Hello. I'm Jack Brunót, and I talk all things art and entertainment, and today we are talking about literature. I'm doing a little bit of a book haul. This is my first book haul. Please be nice to me. I'm pretty new to booktube, so I've been putting this off for a little bit too long. I actually have had all these books on my shelf back here for a couple days, a couple weeks, a couple months. I just have a couple of books here, specifically 7 books. Even though we're only talking about 7 books, they span a pretty large amount of genres, so hopefully you'll find at least 1 or 2 books in here that are gonna pique your interest. I would love to hear your comments about each of these books, but please, no spoilers. I have not read the books, and there's probably other people coming to this video for recommendations that have not read them either, so please, no spoilers. Let's get into it because I don't want to keep you guys waiting any longer. This intro has been long enough. So the first book that we are talking about today is Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. If I pronounce anyone's names wrong or even the titles of the books wrong, please chastise and yell at me in the comments so I can get it correct. And I also apologize to all of the authors. This is a contemporary fiction novel that follows 2 kids throughout their entire lives as they have an on and off relationship, and eventually they end up embarking on the journey of creating a video game together. I'm not gonna lie, that is the only thing that I know about this book. However, I think if this isn't the first booktube video or book haul that you've seen, you've probably heard of this book. It was a cultural phenomenon when it first came out, and that's the reason that I'm really interested in it in general. I'm always interested in whenever a book or a video game or something of that sort becomes this cultural phenomenon. I want to see what everyone's talking about, but I was also very interested in the whole video game aspect. If you've been on this channel before, you know that I cover many different kinds of media forms, video games being one of the other things that I cover, and I just want to see how a book covers the video game industry. The next book we are talking about today is Recursion by Blake Crouch, I believe is how you pronounce his last name. Once again, if I'm wrong, just yell at me. It's okay, I don't mind. This book is a sci-fi thriller, which is right up my alley, I hope. Please don't hold me to anything I've been saying in this entire video. This novel covers an odd phenomenon known as the false memory syndrome, in which people start to have memories that they never actually experienced. We follow a detective and a neuroscientist to get to the bottom of this. Now, if you've heard the author's name before, you might know him for Dark Matter, which is the book that he put out before this one and garnered him a very large amount of critical acclaim. Apparently, they are also making, or maybe they've released, depending on when this video comes out, a TV show that follows that book. Now, have I read that book? No. Will I read that book? Maybe. But I'll probably read this one first, since I have it in my hands right here, and I don't have Dark Matter in my hands right here, so. The next book we are talking about is The Sword of Kagan by M.L. Wang. I actually looked up how to pronounce the name of the novel for once, but multiple sources had multiple different ways to pronounce it, so I hope that was correct. If there's any book that you give a try, please let it be this one. She is an independent author, and I love supporting independent authors, the authors that decided to go their own way and self-publish. It is a very hard avenue to go down, and I have also heard so many amazing things about this. If I'm being honest, I would have read this book already, but if you can tell, it's a thick one. I don't have a problem with reading thick novels. That's the whole entire reason I bought this. But I do have to kind of mentally prepare myself to do it, and that is going to take a little bit. I've never been the type to be able to read an entire book in a day, whether I have the time or not. This novel takes place in a Japanese-inspired world, following a mother and her son grappling with family secrets and impending war. There seems to also be a magical element to it as well. This is also supposedly going to be a standalone novel, so you are going to get to the entire package in this one novel. So go give it a try, please. Go support her. Whether I end up liking it or not, I respect that she self-published. The next book we're talking about is probably a book none of you have ever heard of before. We have Frankenstein by Mary Shelley. Unlike all of the novels on this list, I actually have read this one. I read it back in high school, and this was one of those novels that really made me realize how fantastic books can be. I didn't really get into reading until the past couple of years, and I've been fiending to go back and read this novel, which is why I had to pick it up, and it's a new edition. It's got this cool heart embroidery on it. Now, I'm sure many of you know about the novel. However, if you are unaware, Frankenstein tells the story of a scientist named Frankenstein trying to bring a corpse back to life. Well, not exactly a corpse, but amalgamation of a bunch of different dead body parts. It is considered to be a horror novel, but I kind of feel like it leans a little bit more towards the literary fiction genre, in the sense that it focuses on looking at what it means to be alive and creation. The next novel we are talking about is from one of my all-time favorite authors, R.F. Kuang. We have Babel. This novel has me the most intrigued out of all the novels on this list, not just because I already know that I love the author, but just because of the interesting premise as well. It is historical fantasy set in a alternative 19th century Oxford. We follow a young Chinese orphan when she enrolls into a prestigious institute of translation. I'm going to try my best to explain the rest of the plot because it is quite confusing from an outside perspective who has not read the book yet. But basically, this institute is able to create whatever is lost in translation between one word and another word in a different language through magic. I believe, but don't quote me, that this book is all about how communication is everything and how language barriers can create conflict. Regardless, I'm looking forward to it. The next novel we are talking about is Betty by Tiffany McDaniel, which happens to be a memoir about the grandmother of the author. Betty is a novel about Betty, a young girl coming of age in Appalachia. And I believe the novel just follows her entire life living in a big family home, dealing with the struggles and the power dynamics of society and within her home between the two sides of her family, because she is half Cherokee and half Caucasian. Reviews are changing every day. However, this book seems to have the highest reviews of all the books that we have covered thus far, and also the rest of the books. So I have high expectations, and I'm also not looking forward to it because I've heard it is quite sad. The last book we are talking about today is Monstrilio by Gerardo Cordova. If we're being honest, I picked up this novel because of the cover alone. Look at this. It is so cool. Now, reading the plot of this novel, it doesn't seem like it's a horror novel, but supposedly it is. So we'll see how that goes. Monstrilio follows a grieving mother after the loss of her son. She then carves out a small piece of his lung, and then it becomes a living creature. Looking further into the plot without spoiling it for myself, it reminds me a lot of a certain Black Mirror episode, Be Right Back, in which a woman loses her husband in a car accident, and then she pays to have a clone of sorts of him made. From what I understand, the novel is going to heavily cover the topic of grief and what it's like to lose a family member, possibly under the guise of a horror novel. Also, this was a Goodreads nominee for Best Horror Novel in 2023, and the sun decided to come out. Thank you, sun. You know, I was told it was going to be a cloudy day, and I set up my camera and I do light tests and everything, and I shoot almost the entire video, and then the sun's like, hi. Okay, there we go. I adjusted the camera, so hopefully that'll work out for me. If the sun goes away again, I am going to scream at the top of my lungs. Anyway, that is it. Thank you so much for watching my book haul. I hope you got some new recommendations to watch out for. I will let you know in a couple of days after I have finished all of those books how I felt about them. And if you're still here watching this video, thank you so much for watching its entirety. And remember, don't ever let anyone tell you what you can and can't do in your life. Boo. Bye.